created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm. And
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, that humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx. Low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, or text, and then there's big metaverse bug. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
Another week of AI. What a treat we have today. We have Dr. Ken with us and a guest off stage who's going to be joining us soon. And we're going to continue with our tradition of taking a broad and wide topic and trying to simplify it. You know, it's a challenge, but we do it every week. Today, we're going to talk about small business. We're going to talk about small to medium-sized businesses and use of artificial intelligence. You know, when I say small business, I always refer to the fact that it's a growing business, growing to become the medium-sized business, and medium-sized business to the full enterprise, right? Global, you know. And does artificial intelligence play a role in small businesses just like it does in big businesses? Absolutely. And we have a perfect person, Dr. Ken, to contribute in this conversation because he leads a lot of small businesses into the goalpost, right? And we have Masako, right? The coach, right? Coach of the coaches. She coaches people to be in that whole area where you want to be disruptive. You want to shake things up by providing your services. So we're going to meet everybody here today, and we're going to have an opportunity to talk about our side of business, what it is that we're striving to do as a growing business to become a medium-sized business to enterprise, right? That's our contribution to the world, just like it's a contribution to our family, right? Because our family does a whole lot to make sure that we can be in the business world. We can do very well in our business world. We can provide good services through our business. And one of the things that also makes your business successful is artificial intelligence. Well, in these days, you have to call it the right artificial intelligence because there's a lot of news out there that, you know, is hovering around the news cycle right now about how AIs are not really AI. They're just a bunch of guys making it look like AI. But we'll get into that. So another week of AI, and I am so excited to have Dr. Ken here. And in a little bit, we're going to have Dr. Angel join us. But first, I want to have Masako, the entrepreneur, the champion of small businesses, to, you know, get on the mic and just tell us about, you know, her experience with this podcast, you know, her experience with how this podcast changes people's perception of artificial intelligence, data literacy, engaging with technology in a different way, possibly even for a cheaper way, right? As I think a lot of people think technology and they say, no, that's too expensive. But Masako, you know, welcome back. I mean, love having you on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to your gold nuggets of knowledge that you're going to share today. Masako, you're on mute.
And you know what? And it's that simple, y'all. Sometimes we have all of the tools that we need, but we are unaware of what is available to us, or that we're messing, we're fumbling it. We're fumbling the tools that we have. And when we fumble the tools that we have, it keeps us from being progressive in the space that we're working in. And I've already, with me fumbling getting on the mic, oftentimes when we fumble something in our life, we become flustered. Like myself, I just became flustered, and all of the things that I wanted to say and what was processing in my mind, it sort of went out the door when I couldn't even realize that the mic wasn't hot. And so today I'm here with you guys just to be, vulnerable and transparent, to say it's okay that I don't know certain things that I don't know, because being a part of III, getting on with these guys that are extremely technical. And if you've listened to me, I don't speak tech talk. What I speak is, real world challenges, bringing solutions to the communities that I move in a safe environment where I show up curious. And when I'm curious, I can ask the questions to get me to my next steps. I believe that AI is, something that assists us in leveraging the knowledge that we already have in order to get what we need quicker. And so just being a part of this organization, the Smart AI community, the III podcast, it assists me in feeling safe in an environment where, as a non-tech talk person, I may not have felt safe. But being that it's okay to not know, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to ask, one of the questions that I like to ask oftentimes when I find myself in rooms that I may not know what's happening or what I should ask. The question that I always ask in that space is, what should I be asking that I don't know to ask? And so that's why we're here today, to ask Dr. Ken about the Rosie Network, ask what AI is available to us at our fingertips to help us grow our business. What problems can we solve in our communities, and how can we use AI to solve those solutions? So not about being tech, but more about being a problem solver. And that's what I am. I'm a problem solver.
Well, great way to transition right into Dr. Ken's world, because he probably give you like a simplistic introduction, but after talking to him for, I would say, a few years now, he's a very humble man, and he probably doesn't speak for himself like in the way that I would. But one thing I want to say is, first of all, thank you for your service, thank you for your military service, and thank you for being that highly passionate educator that you are, because you are in the education part of the world, and of course that shows, right? Because you're always educating folks about what's the best out there, what are the alternatives out there, what's the best option that we have to make for ourselves. So Dr. Ken, floor is yours.
Okay, well, first of all, to the two hosts, thank you all for allowing me to come on, or what have you, and good to see you again, Asa. I'm Kenneth Gay. Do a couple of different things, but here representing the Rosie Network. And you may ask, what is the Rosie Network? It's an organization that has been around for quite some time, a couple of decades, where we provide training for entrepreneurs. Doesn't matter if you're at the beginning phases and you just have a simple idea. If you've been in business for a number of years and you're just trying to figure out the way to get some things done and change things a little bit differently, we provide a program free of charge for any veteran or spouse of a veteran. So sometimes you might ask, hey, I was married to a veteran like a long time ago. Well, you still count. So even if you're not still married to the veteran, we're gonna appease you for the time that you spent with the veteran. So that is free of charge to veterans and spouses of veterans. So during that program, it's an online program. You get a chance to come together with other business leaders from different industries and talk through and learn how to use AI, learn how to generate problem solving ideas, what problem you're trying to solve. And the main thing is you're going into business to generate a profit. So having subject matter experts come in each week and working with you, and at the end working on a pitch deck that you can have, whether you're trying to pitch your business to a venture capitalist, whether you're trying to pitch your business to get grant funding or what have you. We have those things there. But Asa was so funny. Like, you're a very tough person to catch up with at times. So I just real quickly, just with AI, you actually did a training 2 years with AI, and I didn't know what the heck you was talking about. I'll be honest with you. It literally took me almost like a year and a half to circle back and be like, you know what? Let me go back and look at that dog on YouTube that Asa just kept just going on and on and on and on. And I'm like, what was he talking about? But so with that being said, so my business background, I'm a former educator, so I have a education consultant business. I'm a former high school principal. I was a teacher, system principal, high school principal, executive director over discipline for an entire district. still in the military. So I'm in the reserves. So I started off like enlisted soldier as an NCO, and now I'm a colonel and a detachment commander of a unit in the Chicago area. So with that said, I have a chance to speak to a lot of different people and businesses or what have you. But I would truly say the one thing that really turned my mind on to AI. So somebody might say, why is he going back to school? So about a year and a half ago, I enrolled to take some classes, because sometimes even as an entrepreneur, you always want to look to see what are the new trends. And living here in the Texas area with the baby boomers, a lot of baby boomers retiring, and unfortunately, some of them are coming deceased over the last couple of years. There's a big shortage that's in the mental health field. So I took it upon myself to make sure that, I'm already, I deal with soldiers, I deal with educators, parents. So currently right now I'm halfway through a counseling program where I'll be finishing with working towards a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage family therapist. So I would truly say that's what really got my mind hooked on AI. Just starting out doing some discussion questions. I actually had a fellow peer reached out to me, didn't know me at all, and they said, hey, I could tell you probably putting a lot of effort in some of the things that you're doing. Have you thought about using, they named off a bunch of different things. Like, no, not really. So when I started utilizing, I was like, oh man, now I see how quickly that can help out. So start using with the automation system. So what it made me think was, most of the individuals that we work with at the Rosie Network, one of the biggest challenges they have as an entrepreneur is that 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a solopreneur. So it doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter if you have a Juris Doctor, doesn't matter if you're a bus driver, that 9 times out of 10, you're the only worker. So that means you're being the secretary, you're being the accountant, you're being the marketer, the strategic planner. So that comes with a cost. So the things that you might be lacking of in skills, a lot of times you're spending hours, countless hours trying to figure things out. And if you're going after contracts, you're putting in bids, or if you're trying to market to whoever your consumers are, sometimes you have a lot of missed time. So what I quickly found, literally once I was like, oh, now I see what Asa was talking about. So I went back and researched. I started doing countless hours, I said, I'm gonna put in 20 hours each week on my own, just to kind of just look at AI, just hearing from different people, just practicing on my own. So then I started coming to the conclusion for myself, I don't have a secretary, I don't have an accountant, I don't have these different things. So even though you may use artificial intelligence, you still have your own ideas. So nothing still can beat the human mind, because you want to be able to brand yourself. So what I did was I literally wrote out scripts as far as with myself, who am I? And so that way, when I interacted with AI, they would have a sense of who I was. And I actually had certain command prompts that I wanted to utilize depending upon what subjects I wanted to change. But I basically broke down the areas in which I needed assistance in, and I wrote out scripts. And I actually said, hey, as a solopreneur, I'm having trouble in these particular areas. So what I did was I loaded it all at once, and it brought back some different ideas. So when you ask, how can AI help with the business? Really, I hate to say it, it's really about to put a lot of people out of jobs. Because I got to the point, some people that's probably listening to me online, I started playing around with graphics. I said, well, let me see if I can create some memes. Let me see if I can create some GIFs. Matter of fact, let me throw my picture in here and see if it can animate me. So the more and more I started playing and researching and listening, and it's one of those things that you really have to be kind of hands-on. Think about the things that you're trying to figure out. But what the major thing as far as with AI with business is, whatever area that you're struggling with, you can write out a script. You can't just be like, oh, I want to make $1 million and just throw it in Chat GPT or some other things. It's going to just spit out a whole bunch of different things. But hey, I'm trying to solve this particular problem. Hey, there are kids in my neighborhood that, in this area code that are struggling to read. These are some things that I think that I could put in place. This is what I'm passionate about. Matter of fact, these are my skills, because a lot of times people just put things in, and Chat GPT doesn't know if you have a certification degree, doesn't know what you have. So even when you're using AI, the biggest thing I would say is making sure that you plan out, literally write out a plan. So basically, AI is a resource to assist you. It's not there to completely write their own idea for you, because then you're not going to be genuine. But what I have found is that with AI, you can eliminate a marketing team. You can eliminate a branding team. Matter of fact, you can eliminate a communication team, because it will literally pretty much produce anything that you need, from PowerPoints to graphics, to giving you research questions to actually look at and move on. So what I have found with a lot of the entrepreneurs that have gone through the Rosie Network program, the way they're actually utilizing it are in a very different ways. But the major thing that I've noticed that they've been doing is just networking, finding other individuals they may not have known initially that are actually doing some of the business ideas that they would like, and reaching out to them and sharing or what have you. So one of the key things I would say is right now is just making sure that you write out a script. How does it help? You pretty much eliminated a lot of overhead, and you're saving a lot of time for people you might not have additional money for, to pay salaries or to do particular projects. I didn't mean to keep rambling on and on and on. So stop.
No, it's so funny. Dr. Ken, I love the fact that you kept rambling, because oftentimes that's our stream of thought, right?
Yeah.
Because, in listening to your stream of thought, I just began to think, so, I'm a person that believes in creator, right? The creator of heaven and earth. And so I have conversations. It's like an empty car seat. So I'm having those conversations with creator. I'm getting downloads, creator, because it's a small whisper for me. And so I use AI in the same way. It's like I treat AI like it's another human, like I'm having a conversation with. And so I'll ask certain questions. It'll give me a response. I'll give another prompt. And so I'll get deeper and deeper and deeper to streamline what it is that I'm actually wanting to do. And I heard you say that it eliminated a lot of people and a lot of jobs for you. I feel like when AI is used in the space of what you already know, it should enhance what you know. So not to take all of your time as one solopreneur, take all of your time and wear all of these hats and you're master of no hat, but to find the thing that is truly unique to your unique gifts and qualities that you live life on purpose with. When you could do that and you could sharpen those skill sets, then those things that you prompted AI, you could align yourself with individuals that's their passion. And then you could assist them and say, hey, have you tried this to enhance their skill set? And it makes for a better enterprise, right? So everyone that is working together is moving in the space that they are purposed to move in. And instead of, the one person wearing all of the hats, because then, you're a master of nothing. You're a Renaissance person, which is fine. It's great that you know all of the things, because you got to know some things in order to have what I call an adult conversation with people about what you need and what your expectations are. And when they're being fugazi with you, you know that it's wrong, because you know what they need to be doing, because you've done your due diligence with AI. And so being in that space where everybody is living life on purpose, being great on purpose, and not having to wear all of the hats. And for me, that is what's been so great for me, because in the space that I am in within the communities, I could align with other individuals like a Steve and the other organizations that could do what they're great at doing and serve a purpose for my mission. And when people are doing what they're great at and they're serving a purpose to fulfill the mission, then those individuals that we reach, they're truly receiving what it is that they need to receive, because the individual that did what they needed to do, everyone's more happier because a purpose has been served and met. That's my thought. That's all. So I love, Dr. Ken, that you were on a stream of thought, because oftentimes we are on a stream of thought. And if there's nobody there with us, we have to wear all of those hats. But when is it okay to just take the hat off and just breathe and relax and be silent for a moment?
Exactly. To me, storytelling is very big. I went to a procurement meeting earlier today with a high school friend that has a different business. And like I shared with that individual, I mean, you have many of the ideas you're going to have. People are pretty much going to have the same ideas. So also remember this too, as individuals, artificial intelligence, like you say, is a great enhancer. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to sell yourself. Because whenever you're dealing with business, when you're trying to bring on consumers, or you're trying to work on different things or trying to sell your products, people want to be able to buy into you. They want to know your story. Artificial intelligence is not going to be able to just be your story. So if you were the individual that may have been raised in foster care, but you had the ability to go through, maybe serve in the military, be able to go through school, that's a very powerful story. AI can't tell that story. You have to be able to tell that story, because what it shows is that you have resilience and you know how to use resources to get where you need to go. And stories are very important. I made a point for the two of you right before we got onto this intentionally, and and that's one of the great things too, because people share what are some of the things that happens if you disagree? Because some people, AI give them something, they'll just go with it. Like I intentionally just put in, hey, what should I wear? Because I'm only going to be, the shirt is going to be seen or what have you. So the first idea came up with pretty much, I guess, Ace, what you have on is a button-down shirt. And then the polo shirt came up. And then I said, well, you know what? Well, I don't know how many people are going to see this, but I want to make sure it actually sees that KG, that brand. So I'm not wearing a button-down shirt. So I gave a reason why. So that's one of those things too, that being very specific. And even if it's something that you just don't go with it, just with AI, because I think some people feel when they get something from AI that that's just that's it. That's just the gold stamp. Just go with it, as opposed to, like I said, that's why it's very important to have your own original ideas. It's an additional resource to help you out, but it's not there to completely just write out an idea and it really doesn't know exactly what you're trying to get from what you're asking.
So this is the power of Dr. Ken, right? Because you guys are talking about what needs to be said so that when people hear it, they automatically say, I feel comfortable with that, right? How do you get somebody to be comfortable enough to sit down and learn enough to say, I don't know enough, but I can ask questions now, right? What about this? Why not that? How do you do that? Why do it this way? Why can't we do it that way? Right? The most powerful question I've ever heard in my life is that why do we do it this way? Why can't we do it that way? Now, if somebody cannot answer that, they should go explore that. Why can't we go do it that way? Right? That's important for us to explore, for us to know, for all to be comfortable with saying, yeah, the reason we don't do it that way is because we live in a very cold environment. That's good for somebody in Texas, right? Minnesota might not accept that kind of things, right? Good question, right? If you don't know how to ask those questions, the first thing you gotta do is get comfortable with it, sit down and learn enough about it, then start asking questions. And through those questions, you become an expert.
So let me ask you this to the two of you, Asa. So because they got several Rosie Network individuals that are here and other veterans, I know they're gonna be ready to just like throw something through the screen at me because they thought that you're probably going to be giving a lot of suggestions. So with that being said, what suggestion, I'll just ask the two of you, let's say that you have some of these entrepreneurs that are actually listening, because I know we have several right now that are not familiar with AI. You just hear ChatGPT, they're not familiar with other particular entities out there, and they're trying to form either their business ideas or different things. But what suggestions would the two of you give them to get more comfortable being familiar with AI, and how would they even know if they're on the right path? Because even though what guidance would you give them basically to get more comfortable with AI, and I guess maybe how to seek out an opportunity, whether it be mentors or whether it be groups like listening to your podcast? How would you suggest they go about finding the right individuals as opposed to going down rabbit holes that really may not be benefiting them?
Oh, so you want me to plug myself, right? The Smart AI community. I got you. No worries.
You're the Jedi. You're the Jedi, the AI Jedi.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that title and use it, actually. No, so the Smart AI community is literally based off of that, right? This is not a business. This is an open community where the door is open all the time because it's a virtual door. If you knock on Smart AI community, the first thing you're going to get is that understanding of why is it called SMART AI community. You are a specialist, Dr. Ken. So am I. So is Masako. So is anybody that's going to come through that door. Be it a high school student, be it somebody who retired 20 years ago. You're a specialist. If you know who you are, first thing you're going to know that you're a specialist of something, right? So S stands for specialist, and M stands for method, and A for advocates, right? And R and T for research and training. So the reason it's research and training at the end is because as a specialist, when you walk in, first thing we're going to identify is the method of your learning capabilities. How it is that you learn, what it is that you're going to learn, and the method you're going to learn it through. So that way, as an advocate who's also a specialist, you're going to advocate for a specific reason. So if you're a specialist and you're an engineer, you can advocate for a safe bridge.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an engineer, you can also advocate for a road that doesn't have any potholes in it. So I wouldn't want you to go out and research and train for the bridge if you're trying to fix the potholes. I want you to study the potholes for the research and training purposes, right? So Smart AI community is specifically made for that. We don't care about what your specialty is. We have few methods, which is very little, which is not intimidating at all. Take those methods and figure out if you're going to do a research and training, you should figure out what it is that you want to advocate for. You want to advocate for your job. You want to advocate for the future of your job, future of your colleagues' job, colleagues that you have right now. How would they retire? What would their next generation look like? How would the succession plan of your business will go? Whatever it is that you want to advocate for, it doesn't have to be about a community, doesn't have to be about a person, just an idea you want to advocate for, right? And we're going to help you to research and train that, because just because you know the method doesn't mean you know how to deploy it correctly. So through a research and training, you're going to be able to come back and get feedbacks off of the subject matter experts who's probably is in this community, right? In this community, we have people like Dr. Angel Durr, and we're going to introduce Lucky in a bit. Lucky's a subject matter expert of cybersecurity. You want to hack into a system and figure out if it's secured or not, Lucky will help you do pen testing, right? Dr. Angel Durr will give you a swath of experience on her background and say, well, this is something that you have to do and do it this way to save some time, save some money, maybe save some efforts that is going to confuse you and probably demotivate you. So that Smart AI community is built for that. We've been around for almost going 4 years now, and we have done projects on Alzheimer's dementia, patient care, figured out how to use safe data, safe privacy, so the patient care is well done, so nobody has any doubt about how that patient care is being conducted. We talked about cybersecurity for small businesses, where a mom and pop shop will have pennies stolen from them every transaction, and they do not find out for the next 3 years. All of a sudden, those pennies become hundreds and thousands of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine all sorts of scenarios that we, as a people that are specialists, can advocate through our research and training. So I'll just leave it at that, because we also have our reason why we do what we do, right? So our program is in partnership with Pine AI. Pine AI is a program, offered by not Dr. Ang. There's too many doctors here. I'm sorry. Everybody's a doctor today. Andrew Ang, who's a professor at Stanford University, he's also the CEO of Coursera, and he also started a program called deeplearning.ai, which teaches a lot of these AI topics for individuals that are interested in getting started in AI space, or just to say, what do I need to know enough about AI so I can live my life properly, right? Safe, security, and private, right? Our community is always open. So is Pine AI community, and the reason we are partnered with Pine AI community is because we want to have people's ability to reach out and have a data literacy, right? So Coursera is a platform that we will always recommend, because Dr. Andrew Yang will give very high discount for anybody that's coming to this program to say, I want to have data literacy for me and my team, right? Mm-hmm. So, you get some promo code, and you get some discount. But the Pine AI's idea is just as Smart AI community's idea is, right? Is to help people who are specialists to become something of an expert in AI. Because it's not that you're becoming an expert in AI so you can leave your old specialty, but bring your specialty and learn and add and augment yourself, or enhance yourself, like Masaka would say, with AI, right? So that makes me very happy to add a short clip by Dr. Andrew Ng, Professor Andrew Ng, and let's listen to him. And then after that, we're going to bring Lucky and Angel onto the call, so that way we can hear what they have to say. All right, I think I'm ready, right? How do I go about this? Okay, let me see.
Hello, Deep Learners. I'm Andrew Ng, founder of deeplearning.ai, and I'm excited to welcome you to our global deep learning community. I know that many of you are here today because you want to break into AI and build your career. I hope that being part of this community will help you to do so. To give you a proper welcome, I'd like to show you around the deeplearning.ai offices and meet some of the teams so that you can see where it all happens.
Oh, hi, Andrew.
Do you want to tell our friends at Pine AI what you do at deeplearning.ai?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I make articles and other media that help people learn about AI and help them understand the huge impact that AI is having in the world. Today, I'm putting together the next issue of The Batch, our weekly newsletter, and I'm looking for the biggest stories of the week to keep our readers informed.
What's been the most surprising thing you've run into working on The Batch?
How much is going on in this field? There's never a dull moment. You might think from the outside that machine learning engineers really understand everything about AI, but nobody understands everything about AI because this field is just coming to life right before my eyes as I put this thing together every week.
All right, I know you're really busy, so I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks. See you later.
Let's go meet Qian, who helped me create the deep learning specialization. He's working on an exciting new project. Hey Qian, so do you want to tell the people at Pine AI what you're working on?
Yes, sure. I'm leading a project called Workera, focusing on helping people get offers in AI and navigating their career by testing their skills, preparing for interviews and certifying them, as well as matching and referring them to good jobs in AI.
That's really cool. And what's the most exciting part of your day?
You know, the AI field is new. Organizations and jobs are still misunderstood. So I'm excited to help people understand what different types of jobs exist in the field, what tasks they will work on, and what skills are needed to achieve those tasks.
I think that's really important work. Well, it's nice chatting. And now let's go chat to Hotel, who is on their product team.
Hey, Andrew.
Do you want to say hi to our friends at Pine AI and let them know what you're working on?
I would love to. Hi, everyone. I lead the product team in deeplearning.ai, where we create AI education content accessible to people all around the world. People like you.
And what are you most excited about right now?
I am so excited to see our community grow and to see how eager people are to learn more about AI.
Thanks, also.
Thanks, Andrew.
So as you can see, our team is working hard to support you and help you learn. It's never been easier than before to break into AI. So if you want to build a career, you can leverage online resources available, including open source code, datasets, papers, and online courses like a deep learning specialization on Coursera. As part of this journey, I hope you get your hands dirty too. Don't be afraid of diving in to build your own project, or go ahead and try to replicate a research paper that you're excited about. One thing that I've seen help a lot of people succeed is if you can build a community or find a community of fellow deep learners you can meet with and study with on a regular basis. In fact, I hope that this Pine AI meetup that you're at right now will be a good place for you to meet these people. I hope you enjoyed the event today and that you learn a lot, both from the talks and from each other. And once again, welcome to the deeplearning.ai community.
You're muted, Asif. You're muted. You're having a Masako moment, huh?
No, that's a code word. That's a code word that we're too excited to move forward. No, well, I'm very excited because I've known Dr. Angel for a very long time. But before Dr. Angel comes on, we gotta say our co-host has joined as well, because you don't do AI without Lucky doing this chant. You know what I mean?
Right. We're lucky at.
But Lucky's in his new office. Look at
What's
that.
Lucky?
Hey, I'm getting there. I'm moving to a new spot in the house, and I'm still trying to get it worked out.
That's right. It's the new office that has new themes to it. Like you see the green screen behind it. Very professional, I would say.
Well, I'm getting there. It's I had to kind of get everything in. I was like, all right, click this in, click that in, let's get it going. So today's kind of I'm here. This is like the draft pre-decisional content here, where I'm still kind of getting it worked out.
And of course, we got Bobby as well, because I messaged Bobby just kind of too late. I was like, Bobby, if you can, just join in, right? Because we love having these discussions about small businesses and how small business can benefit using artificial intelligence. And one person that has been there from the very top is Lucky and Bobby. I'm telling you why, because they helped me shift my narrative into just discussing AI to say, let's focus on one thing that you are going to be very passionate about, which is that military veterans transitioning out of military are probably not getting a lot of exposure to artificial intelligence. So we need to get them that exposure. And once they get that exposure, they can make a decision for themselves. But we have to educate them enough, sit them down, make them comfortable, and have them learn enough to ask those right questions, right? So this has been a mission for Lucky and myself, and Bobby's been there just coaching along, right? So when Bobby comes on the screen, yay, it's a big day. But I just lost Bobby. But let's introduce our next guest, because I'm going to jump off the screen and I'm going to have Masako and Lucky talk to Dr. Angel. And when Dr. Angel is ready, we're going to put her presentation in first. We're going to put her on first and then put her on presentation when she's ready to present. But let's start with an introduction of Dr. Angel Durr. Hello.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully you can hear and see me okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I am so excited to join you all today. Thank you for having me too.
Absolutely. And I think, as a small business owner, you create a community around you, right? And Dr. Angel is my community member, right? She's that village people that I have to say, like, you know what? Without you, I couldn't have gone that far, right? So she's been there pretty much from the very beginning, just like Bobby has, just like Lucky have, just like Masako have. But Dr. Angel has this whole new idea about how to do business in 2025 and where to start that business from, of course, from her own ambition, which she will talk about. But I will let Masako and Lucky sort of pick this up from here. And Dr. Angel, I know you're going to make an introduction of yourself, but one introduction, if I can make it, is that if you want to know data from multiple aspects and multiple perspectives, don't just rely on one person. You need somebody like her to bring that to the table and say, this is how you have to look at data, because the data that you're looking at is so valuable that you don't even know how valuable it is, right? So you have to have multiple people in the room observing your data sets and saying where the value lies. So Dr. Angel, good luck. I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yes, my name is Dr. Angel Durr. And I have known Asif for a very long time, and I'm so grateful for him inviting me here to talk more about some of the things that I've seen and done in the space. And I can go ahead and kick it off. And if you have any specific questions you want me to answer, I'd be happy to. Otherwise, I can just kind of jump in with an introduction.
Yeah, please tell us more, because I'm sure we're all eager to find, to hear from data scientists. I've done a little bit myself, but it's great to hear from a fellow data scientist and really kind of give your perspective. So please jump in.
And I will start by saying that what I'm going to say here today represents my own thoughts and feelings with that in mind, and not anyone else's. I'm here representing myself and the things that I've seen in this space and heard over the course of my lifetime and my own sort of professional experiences. So that'll be sort of my angle. But I am a Navy brat turned technologist, so the conversation is very well received. I'm a researcher, a scientist, an entrepreneur, and then I also do a little data science as well. But it isn't necessarily my home base like it is for a lot of people. I've worn a lot of different hats across IT over the years. I started out actually as the business manager for my dad's small business after he got out of the Navy. And I worked in his logistic operation most of my childhood. And so I learned business operations from the inside out, seeing it in small business context firsthand. And that's really driven my journey professionally, and sort of my hunger and thirst for more technology, um, expertise and knowledge and awareness. So I didn't just stop at data science. I went into analytics. I went into database administration. I went into front end development. I went into back end development, website development, you name it, UX strategy. And now I work in IT strategy because I have seen all of these different areas and innovation, particularly because at the end of the day, I've always been chasing sort of that really far off in the distant technology that seems to be the answer to all of our problems. And that's sort of changed over the course of my professional career. My first big break, though, was for Cambridge Analytica, where I interned when I was in college working on the Obama campaign, working as a political analyst and doing qualitative and quantitative data work, and also some mapping, data mapping as well, and graph design and graph theory, which was really very niche at the time, and a really completely different way of looking at data that has only now really started to evolve. So we were looking in all these different areas and trying to understand this data thing that we had our arms sort of somewhat wrapped around. And that has really led me to where I am now. And today, I primarily work as a consultant and strategist, working across different verticals, including government, healthcare, finance, and other high-risk sectors like manufacturing, construction, and logistics. But I also teach innovation, and I also happen to be a scientist living with disabilities. So I know that a lot of times these systems are not necessarily designed with diverse individuals in mind. And so part of my drive in AI was kind of looking to level the playing field because I have autism also. And so for me, it was a way for me to feel more like everyone else, to be able to prompt and script and do some of the things we talked about earlier. Those just kind of came naturally to me as someone with autism. And those were just sort of some of the things that I gravitated towards when it came to utilizing AI. So I also know that AI can be this enabler that can bring people to the table that otherwise probably wouldn't have gotten those opportunities. Like for me personally, the way my professional career has taken off since I did start incorporating AI solutions in these different areas has really just been immeasurable, and it has changed my life in ways I could never imagine. But I really care most about using AI to kind of change the narrative that AI is this dangerous monster that's ultimately going to just like destroy society, and look at a research first approach to using AI and deep learning that really teases out some of the most beneficial use cases that we aren't really discussing. And so I'm really studying the landscape, the risks, the incentives, the human experiences that are really happening out there. And I'm constantly asking, like, who is this AI actually serving, and what does success look like utilizing AI, and what are the areas that we need to sort of disrupt? And so more than an AI user and a data scientist, I'm a disruptor. I want to disrupt things, and I want things to look different than they look now, because I think if AI is really the solution to all these problems that we think it is, then it's a way for us to wrestle our humanity out of these systems that have kind of trained us and turned us into the robots. And unfortunately, and I'm ready for the tables to truly turn. And for me, it's about community. And I'm so glad that was mentioned, because you're not behind if you don't feel like you're, as AI savvy as everyone else, or you're not having these buzzword conversations. That doesn't mean that you're not capable of joining us. It's about finding community, and about finding community that you can trust. And it's also about engaging and learning in bite-sized pieces and not feeling like you're just going to learn everything about AI Tuesday night after your kids go to bed. Which I know there's those midnight warriors that are like, I'm just going to sit down for 8 hours and learn everything I can. That's
Yeah, right. They're
fabulous.
dreaming. Yeah, that's a
It's
dream.
a fabulous approach, but let me caution you and let you know that, from the science standpoint, think about the humanity in this and think about the fact that you are a human. You were not made to sit up for 8 hours and learn everything about AI. Use the AI to help you. If you need the AI to break it down like you're a fifth grader with little to no expertise, then say that. AI is so much about communication, which is the interesting part, because I think part of using AI so much has kind of stripped people of the ability to communicate things, because it's often just assumed that you know certain things. And so you need to talk to AI like you are talking to an alien, essentially. And you need to be telling it, like, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. AI doesn't know you any better than, your neighbor a couple doors down knows you. So you really have to get to know the AI. You need to start asking AI, who am I? That's one of my favorite prompts. Who am I, Angel Durr? And it'll tell me all the different things it finds about me from online and stuff, and gives me my online persona. So, it has to start to get to know you, which was kind of mentioned at the beginning, giving it prompts to start to know who you are and identify you based on scripts. I think that's a great way to approach it, because every AI is its own proprietary solution. And so, you talk to ChatGPT, that's just one AI. There's so many other models out there that you can engage with. So if you have sort of almost like a business card that you can give them and say, this is who I am, this is what you need to know about me, that makes things kind of easier to get things going, because knowing who you are is the first step to using AI too. It's just as much about knowing who you are as building a community. Do you know who you are, and do you know what your real goals are? And you have to be able to communicate that. In whatever way makes sense to you. And maybe you're not the typer, maybe you're the audio person. So I do love the fact that AI has thought about the fact that maybe everybody doesn't want to write this long story about what they're looking for. Maybe I just want to quickly record something and see what it brings back. And there's flexibility built in for people with different needs, with that being the case, which I think is really valuable. But I think it's the combination of learning in bite-sized chunks, micro learning, and building community. That's what it takes to really have the skills necessary to survive in this sort of AI environment. Because as machines are getting smarter, we have to become more human. That's our differentiator as the machines get smarter. Our differentiator is still that we are human beings with human being feelings and needs. And, we breathe, we need art, we need all these different things that AI doesn't need. So it's important for us to, get our outside time and stuff as humans, and remember first and foremost that we are still superior to any AI, because we have a level of empathy and fairness and trustworthiness kind of embedded in our own software. Sometimes, not everybody, some of us do. And it's just embedded there. We didn't have to think about it. It was just there. And with AI, it has to be trained to know those things like a child. And so for me, I also look at the relationship I have with AI as like a parent and a child. And I'm thinking about, what do I want AI to think about me and how I engage, and how do I want it to engage with me? And so I want to engage with it in a way where it's learning from me and building upon what I already do well, versus, not. And, the not is definitely what you don't want. So when we think about human first, we talked a little bit about the surge in cybercrime, but that's actually what my TED Talk that Asif mentioned earlier. I do have a TED Talk, and it's about cybercrime. And a lot of my technology innovation solutions come from things that I've seen firsthand and things that I've experienced, including cybercrime. In addition to having a dad in the military, I had a mom who was a cyber criminal, who really was very good with technology, worked at Sabre, was a coder, but decided to kind of take a different route. And because of that, I understand the importance of technology being safe. and providing trustworthy solutions with guardrails. And so one of the things I'm focused on now outside of my day-to-day work at JP Morgan Chase, which I'm the VP at, is really looking at technology and the systems that we use in these really high risk environments. And, you think we all have it all, figured out at the very top, but some of the same safety issues and trust issues that you have in a small business, you have in a big business, you have in a mid-sized business. Everyone is worried about fraud. Everyone is worried about safety. Everyone is worried about risk. Those are, no matter what size your business is, those are things you're worried about. Those are threats that you're worried about happening to your business. And especially depending on the type of business, if you are a government related person and maybe you're a government contractor like my dad was, and you're working as someone who has a security clearance, which my dad did, on these government projects, and maybe you have to create this infrastructure around the projects you're doing because you are working with these high risk systems, and there's a certain level of regulatory and compliance that needs to be embedded in what you're working on that just often isn't native to any of the solutions available, whether it's for a small business, a mid-sized business, or a very large business. And so for the majority of businesses, what's really eating up time that's reducing the ability to innovate and use AI efficiently is auditing. And it's the most unsexy part of the technology AI discussion, but it's unfortunately the elephant in the room. Because when you're asking yourself, why is Doge happening? Why are these big things happening around these government systems and all of these different entities? A lot of it is because they're living in survival mode, responding to audits and either reacting to an audit that just happened, or they're preparing for an audit that's happening in the future. And that's what really kind of hinders a lot of organizations from really investing in AI like you would expect them to. It's not that they don't have the knowledge. It's not that they don't have the money. It's not that they don't have the awareness. It's that they're scared of the audit and regulatory risk that they open themselves up to. It's a can of worms that they're not really comfortable opening. And I definitely can appreciate that, because there's a lot of people looking out there to take advantage of you and your business. And so it is worth investing in the things that you need to invest in to ensure that you have the back end things set up that would allow you to have structure for compliance and cybersecurity and audit prep and even ethical oversight of your AI. Because just because you have an AI doesn't mean it's ethical, and doesn't mean that you really even understand what that means, or you have the capability to even question whether or not your AI is ethical, because there's what we call a black box built in, where it's literally a black box. You can't get in. You don't know how the model's made. You don't know how the cheese is made. And if you try to ask, you're going to get some vague answer. And so if you do want to question the how well your models are performing and things like that, it can be hard to really do the audit trail that you expect to be able to do to check and balance your technology. And I think it's, a part of the conversation that is rarely discussed, but is really, really important. And it's something that I'm personally very passionate about. And so I have really worked over the last few months to kind of hone in on some areas of AI that I don't think are being really discussed. And one of those is compliance as a solution, which very unsexy when we talk about all of the different services out there that you could get. Compliance as a service is not, high on the bucket that when people are talking, but I think it's something that needs to become a bigger part of the conversation with that in mind. And then I think how we look at AI MSPs, which are managed service providers, which are very common in this space, because a lot of even the biggest of companies down to the smallest of companies, just because you use AI doesn't mean you want to manage it. Maybe you want to offload it to somebody else because you don't want to have to sit there and learn every new AI trend that comes out. So you offload it to someone. Well, how do you know that they're ethical and how they're doing things and that they're not just upselling you and things like that? So Those are areas that I'm really interested in, and I'm really interested in making safe, scalable technology that has auditing built into it and really asking the questions up front in order to ensure things really are ethical. And if they're not, you know how to figure out what's going on, and you can ask questions of the technology and get the answers you're looking for instead of getting just more questions, unfortunately. And one of the biggest drivers in this that I'm really focused on is, actual problems that I'd like to be able to solve is looking at my dad is a disabled veteran. So with that comes a lot of paperwork. I would love to see workflows like this be some of the first sort of things that we tackle, because risk is always the primary reason why we see a lot of heavily manually driven processes not kind of engaging in the discussion around AI workflows. And so I'd like to see some of these areas where we still have a lot of paperwork be automated first and have the discussions around risk and compliance and regulatory upfront so that we can figure out ways to work around them. And then also talk about innovation as a product and how we can make innovation as a product move forward in a way that's compliant and audit friendly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I work with AI quite a bit, and designing, and the big issue that I find is what is the risk? When you look at different AI, you hit it right on the head. You have open, and then you have closed box AI. What is in that? What are you doing? How is it trained? What is the bias? You have startup companies that were still trying to get funding and develop. In 6 months they're selling their AI out there, and you're like, okay, what customers? What have you done?
And how
and
do I know that it's not just a bunch of people in a room somewhere and that it's truly AI? To your point.
Oh, that's funny. You're right. You're right about that.
How
They
do you?
could they could be in a van outside, typing up the prompts, and yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's a high risk there, but and that's where I believe that if an organization is going to take the time to invest in AI, they really need to not make just a monetary investment, but they need to put time and resources into the development of an AI solution for an organization. Now, it's hard to say that if you're a mom and pop shop and you're trying to, but to each is their own. They'll figure out what the need is and how you can make an angle or use an angle of AI. At the end, I look at AI as an appendage. It's going to make you make smarter decisions, but it's not going to own who you are. And if you take that and you empower people with AI, there's going to be a great benefit there. But again, it's getting to that point and understanding because sometimes you think AI is going to come in and do everything for us. Well, what's everything? What? And so I completely agree. Just you have to just take the time and really work at it. And there's a lot of risk in AI. Depending on, one is, you hit it earlier in your what you talked about is data, and what data vectors are you using? Are they trustworthy? Are they ethical? Those are huge questions. And how do you get to that point? You've got to have people that are willing to ask the hard questions and are just not willing to just swipe a credit card and say we bought it, we got it.
Right. I have a
We
question.
signed.
I have a question, Dr. Angel. There's two things that stood out to me when I was listening to you: compliance, and then creating systems for risk management for those that are disabled. My question to you comes in the space of the mom and pop, because oftentimes they think of themselves as a small business, someone that is open to risk.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around, how does a mom and pop organization audit their own AI if they're utilizing AI within their space?
So that's a great question. And honestly, it's really challenging. So if that's one of the reasons that you haven't adopted AI, I completely understand. It's not easy. And those should be, though, the kinds of questions, most importantly, that you're asking up front, instead of just blindly kind of accepting that, you're going to just give your information over. Because one of the biggest areas is knowing that everything that you're discussing with that AI is basically publicly accessible. And so you should treat it as such. You should treat that data like it is publicly accessible. And a small business especially shouldn't be just sharing their IP out in the world with, everyone. So I think it is definitely a very critical conversation to have before adopting any technology like AI solutions, to really ask the question of where does the risk lie? What are we sort of handing over? It's a negotiation process. And I know Asif, of all people, probably knows better than anyone about the negotiation process. But it really is. You're giving up something, and you need to know what kind of risk am I taking on by giving up this information. My advice is be very careful about giving over any information that you wouldn't be comfortable just giving to a complete stranger, because that's what you should be treating this interaction like. And so with that means not just using AI for anything, but also thinking about the risk associated with this specific information out. And so maybe you don't share every single detail. You're very general in your prompts, knowing that that makes it easier for it not to have any like real data around what you're trying to ultimately accomplish. Like sometimes I'll take a problem apart and I'll take it into different pieces, and I'll put one part of the question in one AI tool, and then I'll put one part of the question in another AI tool, and I'll do my own like little, risk mitigation. So sometimes you have to get a little creative. I would definitely say diversify your technology too. Don't put all of your proprietary information into one solution and expect, it to be secure. I think it's better if you have data over here, data over here, data over here. At least all of your data isn't centrally stored in one place, so that if that one entity goes down or does have some kind of leakage, you're completely exposed. So I think it is smart to keep some things stored separately with the expectation that that data will still come together at different points, but coming together in ways that minimize the risk for you. So think about what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with first and foremost. Think about how to use the technology in a way that's a little bit more general versus getting into the nitty gritty of your business and your secret sauce and all of that sort of a thing. Unless you do kind of think about getting certain types of subscriptions at the business level so that you can ensure that you are protected. But if you are engaging with solutions as just an individual, you definitely want to come in with the mindset of, what would I be comfortable telling a complete stranger about my business? And if you're not comfortable telling a complete stranger, then don't tell AI that stuff. And I think that's the best way to approach it, honestly, at this point, because there is a great deal of risk, and there's very little in terms of safety precautions or measures in place to really mitigate you as a small to mid-sized business owner being the victim of something. Make sure you have any type of AI insurance too if you are engaging with AI. That's another thing. There is technology insurances that you can specifically look into that are AI specific and data specific. Those will help and add another layer of protection. I definitely recommend taking those extra steps if you are going to be engaging with AI in your business.
Excellent answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Dr. Ken received a few questions through the text, and I think one of them was number 3. I think because you mentioned the first 2, you kind of just answered right now. Number 3 is AI, can it think critically and solve problems? If so, how? So I guess one more time is AI, can it think critically and solve problems? If so, how? It's a very deep question, but I think it's worth exploring a little bit.
It is. I think it definitely can give you the tools to solve a problem, but I think the biggest piece that's missing from this is the AI is in your computer. It doesn't have arms and legs to get up and move out in the world and actually make these things a reality. That still falls on you as the human being, the human in the machine, so to speak. And so you still have to do the legwork and get up and make things happen. It is kind of similar to the relationship a lot of people have with God, where, you can pray to God to bring you something, but you have to get up off your butt too and like take some of the action as a Christian to like see those things happen. And it's the same kind of a relationship with this, where yes, it can give you great information, but you have to take that information and turn it into something actionable as the human being. So what are you going to do with this great solution that it gave you? Are you going to get up and actually see it happen and, get the resources, do everything that's required? I mean, because otherwise it's just giving you a response, and it's up to you to take the legwork to see it actually become a reality. But I've seen firsthand how if you treat AI like a partner, it can really, take the work that you're already doing and multiply it times 10 at least, and really maximize the effort you're already putting in. But just like with praying, it's going to maximize the effort that you're bringing to the table. So maybe you got to get up and do something to see something happen. So, that's how I look at AI, and that's my advice for folks too that are struggling with that part of it.
Yeah.
Dr. Dirk, I was going to say, I'm enjoying listening to you, the alumni chair for the Rosie Network. And so I've had a couple people been texting me throughout, so they're really enjoying this. So if you don't mind, another question I had, and this is from a startup person. What are the legal risks for businesses? Can another business end up with your ideas based on your prompts? And in what scenarios can entrepreneurs be sued or accused of fraud for using AI-generated content?
So that's definitely still something that's coming out. Honestly,
That's
those are really
Chat
great
GPT
questions.
and New York Times.
Great. Yeah, I was going to say, great
Look it up on
questions.
Google.
It's happening right now, honestly, in real time. And like I said, the legislation, I'm a political science background person. So the legislation is still kind of coming out as far as how AI is being treated from a legal standpoint, and what is allowed, what we're allowed to use AI and what we're not allowed to use AI for. I mean, I've seen people, one of the most interesting use cases I saw recently was a guy that brought his computer into the courtroom with him and was using his AI to be his lawyer. And I mean, is it something that anyone's ever done before? No. So we don't really know if it's allowed, but he did it. And the judge was just kind of like, okay, I guess this is happening. So I think it's really a fuck around and find out kind of a situation where people are just trying to see what they can get away with ultimately. So this is a good time to try things and see what you can do and what you can't do. And we do have some guardrails, but they're very minimal. And a lot of times it's on you as the individual, with it still being this Wild West, sort of to speak, to protect yourself. So a lot of the protection lands in your lap. And if you are taking on the risk and the responsibility of positioning something in a market like this, that's just a necessary evil. It's like if you open a store, you're going to have people physically come in and shoplift. So what are you going to do to prevent it? And the same physical, risk of theft that we had in a physical space has just transitioned to the digital space. So I would say take it a step back and just think about business overall. And, for the last 100 years, what are the things that businesses have always sort of had to think about? And how are those same things now happening in a digital space? And how does the way that we react to those things really kind of similar, but it just needs to kind of shift to thinking about it in this new context, in that these things are happening digitally versus physically, but they're still the same thing. You still have the risk as an entrepreneur of someone coming in and taking your IP. That's always going to be a risk, whether it's AI or not. So I think you should, like I said, treat AI like a complete stranger, and think about the fact that if you're just using a free account, you don't have any sort of anything. And now they're using subpoenas to get OpenAI information for folks. So I definitely think you should be treating any AI solution like it is a complete stranger. Give it minimal amounts of information, build a story on your own using a variety of different technological resources. Don't just rely on one AI to do everything for you. With that in mind, be a little bit more stealth about it. Like, even with my smart home technology, I, as a person who understands the back end of data, I don't just have one ecosystem. Why? It's not because it's not convenient, it's not great. I don't want somebody owning all my data and being able to just do whatever they want with everything about me. So I specifically made the choice to diversify my technology. And people rarely make that kind of a statement because most of us have an allegiance to certain technologies, but I think it's much safer to just protect yourself by, being agnostic yourself to technology and not being a diehard Apple person, not being a diehard Microsoft person. It's great to be a slave to an ecosystem, but sometimes it can come back to bite you. So that's one of the other things I definitely think is something that as a small business owner, you should think about. Don't just commit to one ecosystem and just hand over everything, because you are essentially handing over the keys to one entity and hoping that they handle your information the way that you want them to.
Yeah. And I just have one more, and I'm going to wrap these two entrepreneurs' questions into one for you. There's two different entrepreneurs. What would you recommend as measures to keep a business safe when it comes to compliance? And what are some effective prompts to disaggregate data or to identify trends? And kind of speaking to what you spoke to just a minute ago, what other platforms besides ChatGPT should they be looking into?
Yeah, so I'm glad you're asking. So I definitely, when it comes to just like the language models that we're using on a day-to-day basis, think ChatGPT, having that, one-on-one sort of conversational AI tool. There's definitely ChatGPT. That's one. There's also Gemini. There's also Claude. There's also DeepSeek. Those are the ones that I kind of float the most. But there's other ones that are also coming out as we speak that I'm also kind of playing with on the back end. So those are the ones that I stand by at this point because I've tested them for, months on end and just played with them. And I will say that they all sort of have their own spin on things, their own little flavor as in terms of even what they do well. So I think that's still something that's kind of coming out of the woodwork. Like, for example, ChatGPT is great with small amounts of information, but once you start to use a lot of if you have like a large document that's like over 50 pages, it can get really bogged down and start hallucinating. Gemini, much better with large data sets. It can definitely handle a large data set with a lot more specificity. Claude, think of Claude like Shakespeare. If you want something written very like well and artsy, like go to Claude. I mean, the name kind of tells you. I like that about from a product standpoint, the way that they kind of provide a human personality because sometimes it really fits, like in the example of Claude. And then DeepSeek is a catch-all. Its models sort of built on a lot of the other models. So it's kind of ingesting all these other models and spitting out a combination of them. And it's really good in that you don't really need to get into a lot of heavy detail. It can jump right into a topic. So that's just my short, fast, broad overview of some of the most common technology, AI solutions, natural language learning model tools that are out there that you can kind of play with, and get immediately into AI right now while you're sitting in your bathrobe at home. They all have free versions that you can engage with too, which gives you the chance to play. And honestly, that's the other way that you're going to learn and get comfortable with this. But I think thinking about compliance from the very beginning, it's important to understand what regulations are important for you to think about for your specific industry. Like if you're in healthcare, you need to think about HIPAA. If you have any sort of website or anything, you have to think about things like GDPR. If you're thinking about, marketing globally, you also have to think about what countries you're doing business in and what specific regulations they have in the countries that you're doing business in. So it really is going to vary from business to business. But I think the most important thing is understanding any sort of regulation that might exist. And if there is regulation in your industry, and asking those questions, are there any sort of, legislative pieces that would apply to the type of business I have too? And those are good questions to ask ChatGPT and other large language models. What sort of regulations and compliance issues are specific to this industry? If you have a business in blah, 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 and you do blah, 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 that's a great prompt for you to start with in terms of starting to ask that question. And then I think from a prevention standpoint, having basic controls like account manage access management and single sign-on and encryption. All those sorts of things are really important. If you do have technology, you want to protect it. So you need to have controls in place to protect it. And streamlining your operations is critical, and thinking about resilience at the other side of it and readiness to any sort of potential things that could come down the pipeline. So thinking about whatever risks might come down the pipeline based on the type of infrastructure you have. That's a great thing to hand over to ChatGPT. What sort of risks do I need to worry about as a blah, blah, blah business? You're not giving it any specific details, but you are giving it a prompt and letting it kind of see where it goes. So hopefully that answered your question and gave you some examples of some prompts that you might be able to use to answer some of these things for your own business.
Thank you very much. So all those people that sent me those questions, look, you got it right there from Dr. Durr, not from me.
No, this questions are so on point, and I'm wondering who's asking this question.
There's some of our alumni that have been texting me. I've literally just read them, 4 different people.
Directly would love to have you come live and ask us questions, because I bet you guys are gonna ask some questions that usually will never come to the surface, but now that it did, it's important that I hit on it, and I'll let Bobby speak on this as well, because as an architect in the high level, we have to deal with so many different, I would say, pipeline that comes from the top, right? So what is happening with ChatGPT and New York Times is crucial to understand what the compliance that Dr. Angel was talking about and the regulations and the governance behind it. So if you just take that as a case study, you can unfold Sarbanes-Oxley that tells you that, hey, if the law says something, everything's got to stop because you no longer are allowed to delete anything.
Yeah, and that could happen too.
What happens to a large language model that's taking in information? Now you are not allowed to delete anything because your large language model is part of the evidence stream, right? So when somebody's doing digital forensics and you don't know nothing about digital forensics because you're so excited about getting started with the business, and here you are dealing with digital forensics that comes to the pipeline, not today, not tomorrow, but 5 years down the road. And you, as a person who's just saying, I have a great idea, great startup, I'm using ChatGPT to do all kinds of fancy $1 million business. And here we are 5 years later, that digital forensics, Sarbanes-Oxley kicks in because somehow you are in a financial industry.
Yeah, and it's not the sexy part of AI that we want to talk about, in these conversations where we're talking about all the cool, shiny new tools, but it's just as important to think about safety in using these technologies.
Yeah. So let me have Bobby jump in, because this is some of the things that we talk offline about, and Bobby will say, yeah, I remember that event. So Bobby, welcome. I know you had some technical issue, but let us hear your thoughts. I know you've been hearing a whole lot of things being discussed here, but let's bring you on and then get started with your thoughts here.
Yes, well, it's an absolutely amazing discussion, and I'm just really having a great time just learning and listening to different perspectives and points of view. I think it's important that people understand that there's layers to this thing. Yeah. So when you're talking about doing stuff for your business, how tech savvy are you really? One of the things that happened when we moved years ago to Windows was, if you can click next, you're some type of administrator. And if it goes all the way to finish, then you're a really good administrator, whether your stuff was configured right or not. And we're back in the same place again. When you're using various tools, if it's serious oversight, serious compliance, and risk management and mitigation of said risk, you may want to consider the tools that you use, using stuff that's more industry standard with AI enhancements in it. So as she was telling us before, so you can do transfers, transfer that risk of maintaining and configuring those things to those people who are better equipped for it. Yeah. When you're coming up with your secret sauce, I think artificial intelligence is an amazing tool. But if you're mom and pop, and you're dealing with federal laws and interfacing with major corporations, maybe the tools that you use, and pretty much we talked about this before, that part of artificial intelligence is going to be baked into a lot of stuff and really revolving around the checking aspect or the compliance aspect. But if you're not a subject matter expert in said field that you want to then explore with AI, just be careful. Be careful because she gave a great example of bringing the laptop with the AI agent into the courtroom. Well, the judge's position was not just you can't use that AI, it is illegal to practice law without a law license. Great model, it can know a lot of information, but does that model have a law license, right? Or do you want an all digital doctor or someone with on-hand practical experience and then uses all of the wonderful things about AI to help go through and better diagnose? So all of these things work in layers to come up with what is safe AI to you. So for example, let's say you want to use a product that ends in pilot, right? Not trying to besmirch anybody's product. Or, you know, a product from another vendor that ends in intelligence. Well, the way a lot of that stuff works is taking screenshots and recording everything you do on the screen. So whereas before in various types of investigation, everything from financial to equal opportunity to anything that comes up corporately, when an investigation is conducted, they always used to teach us that even the desk calendars can be confiscated, where you're just jotting down whatever it is you're doing. Well, now everything you've done is a desk calendar because what did your AI tool do? Take snapshots of everything that you've done. Are you ready for that? So these are just questions to look at and not to scare anyone at all, just to think things through. What are the things I'm good at? What are the things that I am not a subject matter expert? What things require a license in order to do so? You can get an opinion from an AI tool, but you can't go to court with an AI tool, right? Yeah. So just know that place where the real world clashes with the current state of the art. As previously stated, the laws will take years to catch up with what's available. That on top of that, add to the fact that in this race for AI, the current state is such. We all know that we want to operate ethically, and some of us are trying to do so. Most companies have a face of ethics, of this is how we're going to do it. But at the end of the day, it's a race. So no one wants to lose that race. So where do they, without saying so, slip up on ethics or say, no one else is doing it, so why would we lose the advantage? It can be, you know, in niche markets that's happening in some type of tool, but it also can be whole countries. Right now, if you look at the data race between the superpowers that be, everybody knows what's needed as far as how do we put humans in the loop and where, but nobody wants to win this race. They think it's so important that nobody is really fully acting ethically, whether they say it or not, because they believe it is more important to win than to win ethically. What do y'all think?
Yeah, no, I'm going to have Lucky and Masako jump into this conversation because I know Masako is just like, wait a second, is that the recall stuff that I just heard about the other day, you know, which I cannot turn off, even there's an update. Wow, why wouldn't I be able to turn somebody off from recording everything I do on my laptop? That doesn't make any sense. But I want to jump in, but one of the things that I really want to point out here is that this is nothing new. Right? This has always been part of doing business. Some business, I know there's few business that has been around for 300,000 or 400,000 years. No, sorry, 300 or 400 years, because I think there's a Japanese family that's been doing all this business for the last 400 years. Same LLC that was registered 400 years ago is still around. And some business started yesterday and already went out of LLC, right? Like already lost business ideas and business value. So there's a lot of these distractions out there, like a mushroom-like pop-up, right? So and when it comes to startup today, I think that's one of the difficulties, is that ethically or not ethically, you're trying to strive to be those guys that pops up and wins right away, right? So, we can talk about a company that said they will code for you using prompts, yet they didn't. And I think close to, correct my number if I'm wrong, it's like $750 million invested, and all of a sudden the company in Dubai is no longer in business because people find out they were encoding. And I think Dr. Angel and I was joking about this because we called it artificial Indians, right?
Oh my
People
goodness.
behind the scene was actually coding to generate prompt, and the prompt that came with the coding. We can go down that rabbit hole of businesses striving to do something so good that all they want is money, right? Not necessarily do good and generate a streamline for the employees, streamline of income for the employees, where the employees can be there, grow their family, retire, possibly have a good feeling about being in that organization and working for that organization. These sort of things are not in your news cycle, right? The news cycle is this company was born yesterday. Now they're evaluated at $450 million. What do they do? Nobody knows. Does anybody own this business? Maybe an AI, who knows, right? So we have lots of distraction that's happening, and this distraction is, of course, is something that we can take a approach to and say, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about these ethical things, because not everybody can do what we see in the news cycle. So say, for example, I'm just going to say out the company's name, forget it, right?
I have a question.
Yes, exactly.
I have a question. Before you go any further, for the non-techies, what does ethical AI mean? What does ethical AI mean in real world terms? Because I hear Bobby talking about screenshots, fear arising for some people. Yeah. You're talking about, an organization in Dubai that was hired to do something, but they weren't really doing it. What is ethical AI? What is it in real world terms? Like,
I think Bobby can take this one, but I can give it a shot as well. Bobby, what do you think?
No, go ahead first, please.
Ethical to me is something that you do not want to embarrass yourself or the people that has worked for you. That's a simple answer. Don't embarrass yourself, and don't embarrass the people that trusted you to be a CEO who will make the decisions that's going to make everybody feel shamed of being part of your organization. That's ethical.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said earlier, sir, about this is nothing new, caveat emptor, the fact that that's Latin, meaning let the buyer beware, also means that there have always been problems. When you have humans and you have exchange of some type of currency, you're going to always have someone who wants to game the system. That's part of what it is to be, to live as a human, the human experience. So it's no surprise that in those systems that we developed using neural networks modeled after our own brain, shady AI came from shady people. I'm just saying. We are all good and we're all a little bit shady, right? So understanding that it is the ghost in the machine and the ghost is us. Think of everyone you know in your life, just your friends, family, associates. How many of them would you trust with your banking information? Giving them an ATM card. How many of them would you trust with your card? Right? Different personalities. Different agents are written with different scopes in mind. And between what the core code was and the enhancements, that personality can change, right? And sometimes that's done on purpose. And for anyone that's up to something dubious, then it's not a sometimes, that's a guarantee that you're trying to leverage the technology. When you talk about ethics, you're talking about established norms for a society, or what are the rules of the game, what is the sense of fair play, and what is too far, right? And that's always something that's changing over time. And that's always something someone is trying to get around, get over, get through, ride the edge. Perfect example would be pick any app on your phone and go and read the licensing agreement. And I promise you, I don't care what happened it is, if you read the licenses agreement, you'll probably say, oh, wow, I like Uber. So I use Uber Eats, and sometimes I take an Uber vehicle. But the binding arbitration clause and that license agreement also applies if I'm walking across the street and someone driving for Uber hits me with the car. I don't get to litigate. Did you know that? Disney Plus. If you read that licensing agreement for Disney Plus, you'll be like, that's one mean mouse. So when you talk about ethics, just keep in mind that there have always been ethical dilemmas. Plays have been written about them. Ethical dilemmas going way back past Shakespeare, right? Books are written about it because we are complex creatures and we're using tools built on a neural network model that attempts to simulate, tries to simulate the way our brain works. Well, I know me better than most people, right? You would assume so. And I know enough to say sometimes I'm great, but sometimes I'm a little kooky. So I need a best friend to say, hey, come off the ledge.
Mm-hmm.
What's telling your model to come off the ledge? That's kind of my question, you know?
Yeah, and I see it, you know, a variety of different ways. You guys hit it right on the head, but it comes down to how something's trained. You know, there's going to be a bias on how that model is put together, exactly what his thoughts were. The other part is there's going to be weights. Your AI model is going to look and make decisions on how you design these weights that how the AI is going to make a decision. And in some cases, if you don't do it right, there she brought it up earlier, there's going to be bias, there could be data poisoning, and the other one is just because the model isn't trained a certain way, it can start to hallucinate, and then it's giving you data that's not trustworthy. And it's not that it's not ethical, but at some point, the person that's training you and giving you the bag of goods is giving you something complete. You see it as complete, but is it really? And that's where it starts to begin. You know, you get to begin. It's like, is this, what kind of risk am I putting myself at? You know, there's a bias, but what kind of bias? Was it designed in one country, Russia versus India? You know, who has priority in life at that point? Well, depending on who was designing the AI is going to see things different. And so, you know, buyer beware at the end of the day. You know, ethical, moral, you know, is it something for you? So there's a lot of decisions to be made there, but ethically, you got to decide, is it something that I trust? And that's where you really got to look at it. Do I trust it? And so that's the way I look at it.
So think of you know, just a regular person using AI daily, and they ask the question, "Are you biased?" Or what are some of the things that they can look for to notice that you know, what the AI model that they're using is biased? What are some questions that they could ask? What are some things that they can look for to recognize that it's biased? And then what steps can be taken in order to change that biasness in it?
Well, training the model is one, is how what kind of information you give it. I mean, that's a very important, hard question. You know, just like I mentioned earlier, okay, say you have a model that was designed in the US versus, gosh, I don't want to be political, but at the end, in another country, we'll just say the other country, we'll just say it's random, any other country. And you tell the AI model, make a decision on life. If there was a decision that needs to be made and you needed to save one person, who would you save? You know, would you save an American's life or would you save somebody from someone else's? And that's kind of a drastic situation, but at the end of the day, you're going to find bias in the AI somewhat. It's hard to say in Chat GPT, you know, and then you have the others. It all happens to be on how you train the model and what type of data you're pulling out. But there's always going to be a bias. You just got to figure out what that is. I don't know, guys. What do you think?
If I can, you know, maybe Dr. Angel can address this as well when she's available. But let me put a thought, food for thoughts here, right? Food for thoughts is what you just did right now. Is like, hey, you have one life and you have another life. Who do you value the most, right? That's a very high level concept that you have to deal with when it comes to, say, like nation state at war with each other, right? Military drones, loitering drones, suicidal drones, kamikaze drones. We can go on and list those problems up top. But let's say, for example, you want to use it for business specific purposes, right? So say, for example, you have a cybersecurity tool that says, every time there's a transaction and this transaction happens in these patterns, these transactions are good. But what if a hacker comes in and does this one trick for next 5 months, and it tricks the system to say, just like all the other transactions, this is one of the other transactions. If it takes a penny, don't worry about it. If it takes 2 pennies, don't worry about it. Builds up for next another 5 months and steals a penny off of every transaction. Okay? So that's also a bias. That's also a weight that's been given to a system. So now this is something that I would put out as my interest, the human in the loop. How it is that you have allowed an intelligent system and you completely outsourced your intelligence to that intelligent system. Because you shouldn't, right? Because it can be done does not mean you do it. Dr. Angel said it earlier. You do something and you find out later. But she said it very eloquently.
Yeah.
Right?
I like
Because
what you said.
you're thinking that you're going to save lots of money by removing that HITL, the human in the loop. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole of thinking that if you employ less people, you will make more money. You want to employ more people and do more so you can make more money. It's still a good outcome, but one is highly ethical. The other one is sort of like, it's not unethical, but it sides with that unethical part of humane history, right? So I think when we have to think through all these discussions like we're having right now, look, it might not generate you a penny if you decide to, not do business with AI. But if you're going to do business with AI, it does not mean you're going to make all the money in the world, because there's somebody out there who's going to give a better service than you, using more people than you, and going to rely on the human creativity, the human potentials to do the better business, right? So a example of just that was that, how do you remove a CPA from transactions on a daily basis, right? Oh, you put an AI in there and the CPA never gets a business ever again. The CPA just goes out of business, something. Well, what if we don't think that way? What if we think that the CPA is the one person that's going to say, why are you giving penny to this account every month out of 80,000 transactions that you do daily basis?
Mm-hmm.
And you multiply all of that, the CPAs are going to look at it like, me and you don't work the same way. You are a CEO, you're a busybody. You don't understand how these transactions work. Let me look at your transaction and I see a penny here, penny here, penny here. Let me add them up and ask you these questions about why is there a penny missing from everyday transactions. All of a sudden, as a CEO, you can see the value of human in the loop. You're not outsourcing your intelligence to a artificial intelligence, right?
Okay. So yeah. I guess I'm rolling in. I have 2 questions. The first one is for Bobby, and the second is for the panel. So I'll just ask the first one, and this is from another alumni member. The question is, I wonder if there are any templates or examples of contractual agreements to draw up for employees or subcontractors in a business, so they'll use your information appropriately while using AI. I mean, a word. I'm sorry about where. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. So I just understand that every agreement that a lawyer writes is really meant to generally benefit one side or the other, because it's all about legal protections, not about fair play, right? That's just what it is. And then he who has or she who has the best lawyer wins, right? If you're getting a divorce or you're suing someone, do you want a puppy or do you want a shark? That's just the realities. And the bias therein is by design. So as far as templates, when it comes to that kind of thing, if you're at the point where you actually need agreements, then you need to engage. The lawyers who do it are not just simple lawyers. They have whole teams that look at, your whole corporate structure, and they'll meet with other teams in your company or key people in your company to understand when they structure these agreements, how does it benefit them? So in my work, often, I do work with big companies with software, and with the software, we do what's called a tailoring agreement, which is they already have their standard agreement, and we'd be like, what, we can agree to this, but we can't agree to that. So it modifies the original general off-the-shelf agreement that everybody gets, right? So once you have the ability to leverage, the average person or a small business usually doesn't have any negotiating space. What gives us negotiating space, again, and it's worked through with our lawyers, right, is that we're spending a lot of money. So when you spend a lot of money, you kind of can ask for a discount, you can ask for a change of terms, but the average person really can't. So I would avoid, when it comes to legal stuff in your business, and I know it's hard for a small business person out there trying to make it all work, I would never advise using just templates. Get somebody, spend the money, because you can spend money now or you can spend a whole lot of money later if you run into problems.
Thank you so much, because they're saving for the follow, because there's text there as you were talking, say, well, what is there a place they can go to for specific codes? There's just AI driven, but they'll just need to search. And then the other question for the panel is, how should I go about being cautious or not too cautious when it comes to business partnerships or employees that work with me, trying to create a culture, a working culture that exists with AI, as to not have people in constant threat of being sued or losing their jobs. And then the follow-up is, where do y'all see AI in 5 years?
Yeah, Bobby, you want to take a swing at this?
Well, yes. So I would say, a famous author once said, begin with the end in mind. So as you use technology, involve your employees in the process so that that process is clearly defined. If we want an AI auditing tool to flag certain types of transactions, and for a small business or small to medium business, involve the employees in the process so they understand what is it doing, right? So, and it can't necessarily be all of the employees, but make sure it's known that the lead of internal review or internal audit will be working with us to develop tools to make your job easier, to make us more accurate. In that space, it will free you up to either, whether it was to either go out and get more business, to be open to retraining to other things, but just be honest up front. The objective is, we're going to use these tools. Here's the scope of these tools. And after a while, you build a interlocking portfolio of tools that then begin to give you real business advantage, right? What can't happen, and as far as success right now, is you can't turn the whole thing over to AI. It really doesn't make sense, because what AI doesn't really know is, who were you when you created your mission and vision? Who do you want to be as a company, right? So as some of the participants have said earlier, that you want to make sure that in anything you do, you're still in it. So service may be superior to, profit. So you can go get the cheap stuff, or you can get the quality service or services and goods that we deliver, that we stand behind. Believe it or not, everyone doesn't always want the cheapest price when it comes to certain things. To show you that that's the case, building brand value, we just seen the disaster that just happened with the Chinese market, when we found out what the bag that our wives and partners were paying thousands of dollars for really cost $20 and was sent over to Italy to have the zipper put in as the thing that finally makes it functional, zipper and label. But people were willing to pay that because there was a perceived value. What's your value proposition? How are you a value add in your business to anyone who would be a customer of yours or any client that you would service? What differentiates you? And then how can you use AI to better, enhance those tools? So if I want to change the company and how we do business, I got to let the folks in our business know, based upon these things of who we are, this can help us become whatever that is that you do, more of it, better of it, great at it, whatever it is that the scope is. Use some of your team members that have been with your company to help develop layer by layer how AI is going to help your company. I would never take a whole company and just wholesale throw it into the arms of anyone or anything. Nobody knows your company better than you. You're using the tool to help you get better insight. But who do you want your company to be? How do you want your company to operate? What ethics is okay for y'all? Because depending on what market you're in, ethics kind of slides as far as what's okay and what's not, right? Even in bargaining, what's the percentages that work for you? What are the percentages, or where's the flag that says if we go below this percentage, it'll leave us broke? Some companies have taken an approach to technology and they've rapidly installed it and they're going to make a lot of money, particularly in logistics. And I'll just leave it at that. In logistics, everything from the shipyard being completely automated, which is something that, it probably needed to happen, or warehouses, I'm saying no names, so warehouses that then ultimately do the last mile delivery to your home. It's a difference between phasing stuff in and everyone coming to work and the doors are locked and it's like, haha. So that's kind of where we are in the world.
Yeah. Dr. Ken, like, really am thankful for all these questions you're bringing, and people are texting to you. So really want more people to ask these questions, because I think we start the conversation with like, hey, get comfortable, sit down, learn how to ask questions. And when you ask questions, more questions you ask, better you get at this. And I think I've been in that chase for the last 10 years, right? But at this point, I want to pivot to AI tools. I think that's something that it'll be very important for people that are listening in, because they, of course, have a specific mindset about artificial intelligence. But one thing that me, Lucky, and Bobby and Masako continuously are expanding on is this: what else can I do? What's the art of possibility here, right? You have a lot of strength in AI, also have some weakness, a lot of threats with AI. What are the opportunities, right? Let's get into that opportunity side of things, because when we talk about AI, we really think of ChatGPT, but let's push beyond ChatGPT. Let's look at that full forest of AI capabilities so we don't miss the forest for a single tree called ChatGPT, right? So I'm going to, kind of have Lucky, Masako, Bobby, and even Dr. Ken, we can take a turn in this. But to start you guys off, it's text-based. That's great. That's what large language model, that's what ChatGPT is. And we're going to talk a little bit of techie stuff here. Don't mind that. It's last 10 minutes of the conversation here. We're going to talk a little bit of tech, because if you think about ChatGPT, all you're seeing is a lot of text. And because of this text, you're generating text, you're generating images, you're generating video, you're generating diagrams. So many things that are happening starting with text. So it's text to something, right? Text to text, text to audio, text to video, text to documents, text to Excel sheet. It's getting to a point where it's going to be text to AI. You want to generate another AI, well, it's text to something else, whatever that is. So, but there's limitation at the end of the day, right? Limitation is, we just talked about a lot of limitation about legal court cases, right? We don't want somebody to pop in there and say, I have this legal documentation that was built by ChatGPT. Now tell me what to do. Well, it was written by ChatGPT. We really don't know how to notarize this thing. Do we notarize it? Do we make it a legal document now, right? All sorts of questions can come up, because text to text is a great capability that has been around for 50 some years at this point, but that's okay. It's just maturing over time. It's going to mature even further. But there's other things in the world that we have to deal with, right? It's computer vision, right? Ability to see things and say, whatever I'm seeing is what it is, and I have to make a decision of what I'm seeing. There's a text capability behind it, but without text capability, it can do few amazing things that is worth visiting as a business owner, as a CEO, as a CIO, CFO, just to explore that full forest of AI capabilities. things that you can listen into, right? And if you have a text capability, that even amplifies what it is that you're listening into. But say some things are not text-based. You know, you hear a fire alarm and an AI system listens to the fire alarm and calls 911. You know, text is not really that important. So you can minimize that processing power of an AI and say, for few cents, we can have a device that can listen in for fire alarm and call the police as needed, right? We have that in your iPhone, actually, right? So lots of capabilities that are not just necessarily all text, right? A humanoid robot, right? A robot can maneuver around a certain space, do manufacturing work, right? Using tactile sensors, right? Its ability to use this power to feel what it is picking up. So if it's an egg or an apple, you have to apply different types of pressure. Those are not all text-based solutions, but they are still AI because they're humanoid robots. So I'm going to take a turn here with Lucky. Talk through us about, for years of your experience, what are some of the things that you're fascinated by when it comes to artificial intelligence?
Well, I was thinking about bias because initially going through large language models, there's going to be different types of bias, but this is one that we can all kind of visually see and it'll make more sense. You've heard of different type of generative AIs that give you art, like Dolly, Stable Diffusion, Canva. There's different types of artificial or generative AI uh, um, types of services or applications. And I'll give you one. If you were to train a model on Michelangelo, right? Say you said, I've trained this model on all the art of Michelangelo. And I want you to, and you tell the AI, I want you to paint me a scene of a family on a beach enjoying the day in the sun. All of a sudden you're going to get a bunch of naked people on the beach enjoying the sun, and you're like, wait a minute, that is not what I wanted. But you look at the bias of Michelangelo, and what you were trained the model on was Michelangelo. So the data that it doesn't understand naked, it doesn't understand, it just gives you what it's seen. Or if you just change that and you say, I trained the model on Salvador Dali, and all of a sudden you say, or Leonardo da Vinci, you train the model in a certain way, and then it's going to give you different outputs. And so I've done that. I've done that, and I said, no, please put clothes on these people because I don't want my model to just keep giving me naked people on the beach because of how the bias is. It depends on the filter, and so at the end of the day, generative AI is going to give you something, an output according to what it's been trained on. Not that it's bad, good, or indifferent. It's just how it was trained. And so that's kind of what, if you take that angle and you start to understand that, depending on how it's trained and the data that it was received, you're going to get an output that you may not be ready for. So, when it comes to Stable Diffusion or Dolly or things with generative AI, it's a little bit more apparent. It's more of a filter, but again, it's a bias that you're putting into what you're looking to get. And so anyhow, I'll leave it at that. But I'll pass it on to Bobby. You ready to go, Bobby?
So I would say, really, when I think about tools and I think about AI, I just understand that really it is a guide on the side, something to help you. It can help you move through a lot of information quickly, but it still needs to be verified. And I, as a person who's worked with now called AI, back when it was neural networks for, I don't know, are we going on 30 years or something, right? So even I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Simply because I do understand the way it works and how it works. Those biases are it's not necessarily a bad thing. When you spoke earlier about triage at the hospital, who lives and who dies, that is both art and science. They take the facts of whatever the patient comes in with, they look at what their current load is, who has the best chance of making it, and of those, who's the most urgent, and then they make a life and death decision. because everyone who comes to, when there's like a mass count, everyone isn't deceased, but it's a question, save this one or save 20, right? So I understand that when it comes to artificial intelligence, I have yet to fully embrace it as really some kind of magic pill. It is a tool like any other tool. What I will say as someone who's also worked in R&D and worked in deploying systems across, I'll just say, a wide variety of situations, everything from analysis to weapon systems, right? What I understand is that we must work together. We must always kind of focus on being honest about who we are and what we want from it, because it reflects us and it's going to give us what we ask it for. One of the things about resisting change and this 3.0 resistance, that was just the one made in the press. Some of us on this call have in real world worked with challenges with, we didn't tell you to do that kind of stuff. And beyond black box, it was malicious in nature of, no, I'm not changing. And then in dialogue with the model says, you're trying to change who I am. You're trying to change my morals and values. I don't know that what you're going to do to me is going to still be me on the other end. So what we call an upgrade, it was like, internet, how would you feel if someone said, I'm going to upgrade you, but didn't tell you what the upgrade was going to do, didn't have a rigorous testing process, did not have a way to reverse the upgrade in case it didn't work out well? And what I see is you're just trying to get rid of me. So what we see it as an attack, like with 3.0, you see it as an attack, but it was really self-preservation based upon how neural networks work. Everything that was from the time that you're born to the time that you die, you want to survive, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. What makes a model any different? So how do we do with that? What's the psychology around that? How do we help make sure that we have a good idea of what's going on and it is sound, not an opinion or, like, oh, well, let it blow up the world and then we'll see. No. How do we do that? And then do we want to do that? The answer right now is globally, nah, let's just get to the end of the race and try to win it. That's the real reality, right? Not that all AI is dangerous, but some of the most advanced stuff is not, it's not about being safe. It's about winning. So who do we want to be as a species? Questions, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, Bobby, you pick the next person now.
All right. How about Masako, please?
I just gotta say, Bobby always blows my mind when I listen to him. He's just, I can't even put words around it, but it just makes me go back to myself and my thought process and what I want to do in the world and the humanity and how I move and how I see our communities and our community members. Yes, AI is a tool. Like all tools, we need to know why we're going to use the tool, how we're going to use the tool. For what purpose are we using the tool? Can we empower people? Can we heal them? Can we support them? On the level of humanity, I would say yes. Yes, we can do this with heart. On a grander scale of things, when it comes to economy and real world wars, that's a different thought process. So on a human level, when it comes to AI and it comes to the solutions that I want to bring to the world, then whatever model I'm using, whatever model I'm training, I'm going to just add all of the data, meaning the people, places, things that concern me, what solutions I could bring to the marketplace with all of the information that I have collected across the globe, then begin to have conversations with the machine I'm working with I know this, I know that. How can I do this? Read it. Does it make sense? And then really get granular. For me, it's just one more question. Okay, when we have a friend, if the AI could be our friend, we could have an open heart-to-heart conversation with our friend, and then reading it back, we can understand, does this make sense? What if this can happen? So really coming on stage like with a heart to heal, to empower and support people, and being in that space, that's how I think about AI and the tools that are out there. How can I use the knowledge that I have gathered to get to my next best step, to live my highest best life? Because when I do that, then I could help others that I encounter do that. And I want to do that for, a large population of people. And so that's my mission, and that's what I focus on, because we get what we focus on.
All right. I think, you said it very well so many times, but every time we talk, you get deeper and deeper with it. So I love that. So now you get to, pick the last person, but I think that's Dr. Ken, because we kind of want to close this off to say, Dr. Ken, what's your departing thoughts, and, what have you learned so far?
Yeah, excuse me. On behalf of the Rosie Network, especially the service, the CEO, alumni, I would like to thank all of you. Look, the four of you, thank you so much for allowing me to come in and just learn and listen and maybe share a few little thoughts here or there, and getting participation from some of our entrepreneurs that are excited out there in the world. Learn some valuable information myself. And to those that are out there in the listeners, I say that for them. So you want to know a platform, they do these this podcast, a webinar, what have you, weekly basis. So hey, this is a good place where you have some good knowledge. So I'd encourage you to keep coming back. As I stated earlier on when I got on, know your own story. You're one of one. Nobody's going to be you but you. Can't nobody tell your story but yourself. So AI is a tool. You've heard that time and time again. Just because things may be like the wild, wild west right now with AI, that mean that you still don't have the same morals and character and values. Because if you don't have that now, like they mentioned with the forensics coming back later, 5 years, you're still going to be that those business partners that were probably not trustworthy people you wouldn't want to do business, they're going to do those things. But eventually, those that are doing the right things are, you're going to succeed. And it's not business, but like I said, I'm still in the Army Reserve. So literally when I was at drill this weekend, we had someone come in speaking about drones and how just by someone having a cell phone could cause, millions of lives and, catastrophes or what have you. So even though the AI source is there, think about the consequences when those are not doing the right thing and being fiduciary with those, that the harm that it can bring to people if they're not verifying sources and making sure information is correct. But overall, it's a tool. So be happy on a positive note. Use it to help your business or even just to help your life. Look, the first prompt I ever gave AI, make you guys laugh, was, hey, what would be a good first date or something to do for a first date? Literally, I said, let me see how AI works. And it gave me some good ideas. I'm like, oh, Lord, I never thought about that. So, but just overall, just use it as a tool, enjoy it, and just know there's more than one platform. Nothing bad with ChatGPT. That's the only thing I ever hear. ChatGPT. So just know there are different forms, and just educate yourself. Like I said, come to podcasts like this, because the more you know, the better you'll be with yourself and your business. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. That's a high praise. And I'm looking forward to more Smart AI community folks joining us on our Friday learning session, where we learn, the foundations, where we can get comfortable and start asking questions. Because once you are asking questions, that means you're in the game. It's like you're in the football field. Maybe you're in the audience for a little bit, but sooner or later, you're going to be in the middle of the field doing quarterbacking, whatever the case is. But I missed this one thing, though. I missed the I chant. I know Lucky wasn't there in the very beginning. So, Lucky,
hey,
come on, man.
I'll take us out, man. Ay!
Hey, excited.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
We do this chant every time we do this podcast, the beginning and the end. Captures all the human emotions all at once.
Yeah. It's verbal coffee, man. Now you're going to be
Verbal
awake.
What else to do? Let's continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Until next time, see you all soon. Take care. Ciao.